Will said, and I'm an anthropologist by profession, and over the years I specialized in life in Bible times. If we speak about Bible times, one of the most important things we know from the biblical era is behind us here, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a very ancient city. This part we see here is about 2,000 years and a bit more. But if you would go around the corner, there is the real old Jerusalem, which in the past was called Salem, and since the time of David, it's called the David city. In the time of Salem, we read that Abraham passed by this area. We later on read that Joshua was in the land and David was in the land. Of course, we know that Jesus was born here and his whole ministry took place. It's an amazing thing that 4,000 years of history of man like us and God is known to us today. And how is that possible? Well, it is possible because at some point God spoke to man in the past to write down the things that he told them. And it's not like today with computers, but they had to write it down with feather pens or with bamboo pens like this one. And that took a long, long process. But it's so interesting to see that over this long history, the archaeology proves that the things indeed happened like it is. If we look into the Bible, we see something very interesting. Many of the stories go about people doing their daily work. They work with plows, with grinders. They work with pruning hooks. This is an old pruning hook. With weights. And through that, God started to explain them what he really wanted. So these items, these tools and utensils became very important in the stories of the Bible. Now, at different times in my life, I love to work with handicapped people, with poor and needy. And at different time slots, I worked in the Middle East, and I was traveling a lot, and I saw that in the 80s and the 90s, people started to discard the old tools and utensils that were used for thousands of years. I started to collect them because it was my profession. I had a collection. This collection has grown. And in 1995, we opened a small private museum. It's called Beit Avraham Life in Bible Times. Many people from all kinds of corners of the earth came to visit us. They came from Fiji and from Japan, and they came from America and from Austria and Australia, but also here from Israel, from the north and the south, Jews, Bedouins, Arabs, non-religious, and Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox. Because these tools are known by many people, but it's very interesting to see how they work, where did they come from, what kind of material, and in the end, what did God really mean to say? What God really wanted to say, and he did that through the people that he asked to write down what was in God's heart, that God breathed in the writing his spirit. And if you read this, not only as a history book, the Bible, but if you read it willing to be open, to understand the spiritual part of it, the Spirit of God will breathe in your own life. And it's like a young man meets a young girl, or a young girl meets a young man, and they fall in love. It's impossible to describe love. It's something very deeply inward and spiritual. And this is what happens by reading the Bible and allowing to understand what God really has to say to us, how to live, and how to make this world a place that is not only good for yourself, but also for your neighbor and also for your Creator. This is what we in Beit Avraham do. We have our collection which we show. We have more than 20 PowerPoints which are made by one of our workers. Beautiful PowerPoints about subjects like water and wells, the life of Abraham, the stones in the Bible were used for many different issues. Grain and harvest, plowing and seeding, nature. It's very beautiful. Again, we stand here in the front of Jerusalem and we see these old walls, and they're basically saying this old story that was told in the last 4,000 years is still alive. So now we move to the cafe, the Beit Avraham Cafe, and here we have nice fresh drinks and coffee and cakes, and there's time for discussions and to talk with one another, but also to sit and relax after a long trip, a long walk. And from there we go to the theater. We have a small theater. In the theater we have a great variety of activities. We have PowerPoints that beautifully explain with pictures and music and stories about all kinds of subjects in the Bible, like what did Jesus see when he came from Nazareth and he went to Jerusalem? About the hills, about the nature and the water, how he arrived in Jerusalem. Or another subject is about sheep and the shepherd. So a lot written in the Bible about the stories how shepherds had to deal with the sheep and the dangers they went through, and also the beautiful areas that they were in, the green land. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want, because he brings me to where the grass is green, where my needs are going to be filled. All the subject is about the stones in the Bible. Stones are used for so many things, and I showed you a while ago the weight for the loom, but stones were used for weights and for houses and for streets. Flintstone was used for fire and for knives. It was building of roofs. It's very interesting to see how it was used in the Bible. It was almost like metal and plastic are today. So was stone used in the biblical era. We further have music evenings or gatherings for people, lectures that other people gave from the outside, or simply a movie to be shown about all kinds of subjects, or an evening relaxed with people after a tour through the land and just sitting down and enjoying more of the history of the Bible. That is what Beit Avraham is. Life in Bible times, not only in history, but still today.